One of the simplest ways to interact with Scripture on paper is to just make lists. One of the questions we can ask is, what does this passage say about God, and what does this passage say about me? So I'm just going to take a sheet of paper and make a really simple list for myself. Nothing complicated, nothing fancy. And I'm looking at Psalm 145 today. So I start in verse 1, I will extol you, my God and King, and bless your name forever and ever. Okay, so there I see God is a king, but like David, something I can do is extol and bless. I look at verse 3, every day I will bless and praise your name. That's something for me. Verse 3, God is great. Verse 4, one generation shall commend your works to another. Okay, I can commend God's works and declare his mighty acts. Already I'm getting quite a list of things that I can do in response to God. Verse 5, well, back to verse 4 actually. So his works and mighty acts. God does mighty acts. I want to notice that. Verse 5, look at this phrase, the glorious splendor of his majesty. What does that mean? I'll come back to that and think about that later, but I don't want to forget to. So the glorious splendor of God's majesty. And, wondrous works there at the end of verse 5. You know, I could put that right here, kind of a parallel idea to his mighty acts, wondrous works. And I'll continue through the passage this way. Okay, so there's a quick list of things about God and things about me in this passage. So now that I've made some observations, we can do some further thinking and reflecting on these ideas. We could ask questions like, what are the connections between these characteristics of God? We could divide up the list into attributes that are God's greatness or God's goodness. I could ask questions like, which of these characteristics are things that only God possesses, and which could I emulate? So for example, we could say, okay, God is a king, I am not. God is great, I am not. God does mighty acts and mighty deeds and awesome deeds and wondrous works, I do not. Glorious splendor of majesty definitely doesn't apply to me. What about goodness? Is that something that I can emulate? Is that something about God that I can follow? What about righteousness? Sure. Mercy, grace, being slow to anger, faithful love, good, faithful, kind. So I can think about this list in several different ways. In the Old Testament especially, it's always good to ask the question, how does Jesus reveal this aspect of God to us? I could go through this list and meditate on just that for days, really. But I can also now personalize this list. And you can do this over several days. Come back to the passage, come back to your sheet, and read and write and meditate more. But I could ask, in what specific ways have I experienced these things to be true about God in my life? And then jot down some of those things. Write recent events in your life, things that God has done. And if it doesn't come to mind quickly, then spend more time reading and thinking and start looking for it in your life. Okay, what about this other list, the list about me? Am I responding to God in these ways? How can I extol and bless and praise and commend and give thanks to God for these things right now? Right now as I'm reading, I can stop, read through this list, and respond in these ways in praise and prayer. And how can I better make known his fame to others? How can I be pouring forth his greatness and singing aloud and speaking and telling and making his fame known to others? And what about God from this passage can I meditate on today? Just by making this list, it's given me a focus on God and on me that helps me then apply it to myself and take action and see this passage lived out in my life today. I can keep this list and come back to it anytime I want.